He does the right thing, and it destroys his life overnight. Career, safety, reputation, all gone. When temptation turns into a trap, the only proof left behind makes him look guilty. So why would anyone choose integrity when the price is a prison cell? Joseph arrives in Egypt with no leverage, no family, no status, no courtroom that will favor him. He's purchased into the household of a powerful officer, and the distance between master and slave is built into every stone wall. But something strange happens in that house. Joseph begins to prosper, and people notice. The text keeps repeating one quiet line like a heartbeat. The Lord was with Joseph. Not as a slogan, more like a pressure in the air, visible in outcomes. Work goes right, accounts balance, tasks finish early. And Joseph, the outsider, starts becoming the most reliable person in the room, which is where danger begins. Potiphar sees it. He can't miss it. The household runs smoother when Joseph touches it, and the blessing spills beyond the walls into the fields. So Potiphar does something risky. He puts Joseph over his entire house. The master stops tracking details, and Joseph becomes the one man with access to everything. Imagine the pressure of that trust. Potiphar knows nothing except the bread he eats, meaning Joseph controls schedules, supplies, rooms, and movement. He's still a slave, but he's a slave holding the household's pulse. And that kind of authority doesn't just attract respect, it attracts attention from the wrong place. Potiphar's wife approaches Joseph with a demand. Simple, blunt, repeated, "Lie with me." No romance, no subtlety, just entitlement. And Joseph is trapped in a cruel equation. Refuse a powerful woman in her own house, or betray the man who placed everything in his hands. Either way, someone can crush him. Joseph refuses, but notice how he refuses. He doesn't boast. He doesn't flirt with the edge. He names stewardship. My master has committed all he has to my hand. Then he names God. How can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? That's not fear of getting caught. It's loyalty. But temptation here isn't a single moment. It's a campaign. Day by day, the same pressure returns, like a door that keeps trying to swing shut on him. Joseph changes his routes. He avoids being alone with her. He keeps his work public, his steps measured. And still, the house itself starts feeling like a trap. This is the part people skip. Integrity isn't just saying no. It's managing the boundaries that keep you from needing a heroic speech later. Joseph refuses to even be with her. He chooses distance over drama because he knows how power works in that house. And then one day, the pattern breaks. The men of the household are gone. The rooms feel too open, too silent. Joseph enters to do his work because responsibility doesn't pause for danger. And that's when she moves from words to force. The camera doesn't need to show much. One hand on linen is enough to change his life. She grabs Joseph by the garment and repeats the demand. In that instant, arguing is useless. Staying is dangerous. So Joseph does the only clean thing left. He leaves the garment in her hand and runs. He chooses to look foolish, to lose status, to lose evidence, just to keep his soul. Now she's standing there with a prop. And props are powerful when you control the story. She stares at the garment, and you can almost see the new narrative forming, one that turns Joseph's escape into an accusation. The most righteous action he takes becomes the detail used against him. And she moves fast. She summons the household servants and speaks first, because the first story usually wins. She holds up the garment like a verdict and tells them Joseph came in to mock and violate. Faces change. People who benefited from Joseph's order now feel permission to distrust him, and the house that once ran on favor starts turning cold. Then she waits for Potiphar. That's the cruel genius of it. She doesn't just accuse Joseph, she frames it as an insult to Potiphar's honor. "The Hebrew servant you brought to us," she says, turning Joseph into a foreign threat and Potiphar into the embarrassed victim. And when power feels mocked, it demands blood. Potiphar's anger ignites. The text doesn't give us a courtroom, witnesses, or Joseph's speech. Just a decision. In that world, a slave's word is light as dust against a mistress's claim and a piece of linen. And Joseph, who managed everything, is suddenly treated like a danger to be removed. Here's what makes this sting. Joseph did exactly what we tell people to do. He refused, he avoided, he fled. And the result is not applause, it's chains. If you've ever wondered whether righteousness works, Genesis 39 answers with a hard honesty. Sometimes integrity costs you immediately, and the bill comes due in public. If you're tracking with this story so far, take a second to like the video. It helps more people find these scripture episodes. And if you want more scenes like this, where the Bible's tension is treated with honesty, subscribe. Because the next part is where the question gets sharper. What does God is with you mean when you're punished for doing right? Joseph is taken to a prison connected to royal authority, where the king's prisoners are bound. This isn't a slap on the wrist. It's the kind of confinement that swallows names. And notice what the passage does here. It doesn't rush to fix the injustice. It makes you sit in it. Because faith isn't proven by comfort, it's proven by what you do when comfort is gone. Think about the irony. In Potiphar's house, Joseph held keys, seals, and schedules. Now he hears keys for a different reason: metal and wood, turning locks. The same hands that organized abundance are empty. And if Joseph is human, the questions will come fast. God, you were with me. So why this door? Why these bars? Genesis 39 is careful. It never says Joseph was flawless, but it does say he was faithful in the moment that mattered. His refusal wasn't just, "Don't do a bad thing." It was, "I won't betray trust and I won't sin against God." That's integrity as worship, quiet, costly, and unseen. Which raises the real tension. What is God doing with unseen faithfulness? Potiphar's wife disappears from the text after the accusation, but her impact remains, because the damage is already done. That's how false stories work. They don't need to keep speaking once they've been believed. Meanwhile, Joseph's silence is loud. The passage doesn't record him defending himself, not because he has nothing to say, but because the system isn't listening, and that's a different kind of suffering. This story also exposes a trap we rarely name. Success can put you within reach of someone else's power. Joseph wasn't tempted when he was ignored. He was targeted when he was trusted. When you become useful, visible, promoted, the stakes rise. And sometimes the test isn't, will you do wrong? It's, will you suffer rather than do wrong? Joseph's choice to run is not cowardice, it's wisdom. He doesn't negotiate with a situation designed to trap him. He doesn't stay to clear things up. He moves his body away from the edge, even if it means leaving something valuable behind. And that detail matters. Sometimes the most holy decision looks from the outside like panic, which is why the garment becomes so deadly. Clothing in this story is more than fabric. It's identity, status, and vulnerability. A garment should cover you. Here it exposes you. It should protect your dignity. Here it becomes evidence. Joseph loses his cloak and keeps his conscience, but the world often rewards the opposite trade. And if that feels unfair, good. Genesis wants you to feel that, because the next question is unavoidable. Is God's presence real if it doesn't prevent the prison? Earlier, the text said Potiphar saw that the Lord was with Joseph. Now, in prison, nobody is looking for that. There's no applause for faithfulness in a cell. Yet this is where the episode's theology sharpens. God's presence is not a shield from consequences in a broken world. It's a companionship that shapes who you become inside them. And that's harder to trust than a miracle. Put yourself in Joseph's position. You're far from home, your name is easy to smear, and your obedience has made you look guilty. That's the emotional furnace of Genesis 39. It doesn't let you hide behind easy formulas like, do good and good will happen. It forces a more honest faith, one that can say, God is with me, while the door still locks. And that kind of faith changes a person. And notice what Joseph doesn't do. He doesn't take revenge. He doesn't burn the house down on his way out. He doesn't compromise to buy safety. His victory is invisible. He remains the same man in private that he appeared to be in public. In a world addicted to outcomes, Joseph chooses character. But the story still leaves us with the ache, because character isn't what the jailer sees. Genesis ends this section without clearing Joseph's name. No sudden confession, no dramatic reversal. Just a righteous man confined, and a reader forced to decide what they believe about God in that silence. Maybe that's the point. The Bible isn't embarrassed by unanswered pain. It records it, and it asks you to keep watching anyway, because the prison isn't the end of Joseph's story, even if it feels like it right now. So what do we take from Joseph here, without turning it into a slogan? First, temptation often arrives where you're thriving, not where you're failing. Second, integrity is more than refusal. It's boundaries, distance, and decisive action. And third, obedience doesn't control the story others tell about you. Joseph ran from sin, and the world rewrote his running as guilt, which means your faith can be real even when your reputation isn't safe. If you're in a season where doing right is costing you, where the clean choice feels like the losing choice, Genesis 39 offers you companionship, not cliches. It tells you you're not crazy for feeling the injustice, and it tells you something else, quietly but repeatedly. The Lord was with Joseph, not to make life easy, but to make Joseph faithful. And that raises the final challenge. What would it look like for you to be faithful when nobody claps? Joseph's story ends this episode behind bars, not because integrity failed, but because integrity is expensive in a world that rewards power. If you want the next chapter of Joseph's journey and more episodes that treat Scripture like real life, subscribe. And if this spoke to you, comment "I ran" below. I read every single comment.